We continue to follow breaking news at the Supreme Court. The High Court is hearing oral argument about the legality of President Trump's executive order. That order is aimed at ending birthright citizenship in the United States. And here's an exchange just a short time ago between Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and Solicitor General John Sauer.
Are you saying that only people who are domiciled here, as you define it, can form the necessary loyalty to the United States?
It's not allegiance is not a question of subjective loyalty.
Okay.
Oh, it is something you owe. It's a reciprocal relationship between the citizen, whether they want it or not. They have that allegiance, and I think it's powerfully
on the basis of what?
Domicile. I mean, that's what it says in so many words in the Venus and the Pizarro. It says, look, if you're talking about an alien, if they're just temporarily passing through, no, they don't have allegiance. But if they've made it their permanent home, they become part of our political community, and they are analogous or akin to citizens.
And just a note for our viewers, the president was at the hearing earlier today, but he is now back at the White House. Right now, I want to bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson, who is closely watching this case for us. And Jessica, a lot of discussion so far on domicile and allegiance to the U.S. Can you break down what this means in this case? Because I have no idea what that is, to help us understand.
Absolutely. I hope so. So we're talking about the 14th Amendment. We're talking about the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment. And even more specifically, we're talking about this language that says if you're born on U.S. soil, you are a U.S. citizen. And there we see it on the screen, if you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So this entire argument so far has really been about those four words, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, why are we talking about domicile? Because the Trump administration has argued that subject to the jurisdiction thereof means allegiance, and allegiance means domicile. And that's why, in short, we're having this lengthy conversation about what we understood at the time the 14th Amendment was ratified, at the time the cases that were written that interpreted the 14th Amendment, what they understood domicile to mean. I'll add one more thing, which is, I think, the key case in this area, a case from the very late 1800s, used the word domicile 20 times. And so what you see now is both sides having to contend with, does this word matter and what does it mean?
Huh, okay. And so what challenges do the plaintiffs face in arguing this case?
So I think for those challenging the Trump administration's executive order here, and they're arguing as we speak, I think the challenge is to convince, and I don't think this will be hard, but to convince at least 5 justices that, in fact, this is not about looking at domicile. It's not about looking at allegiance in this sense, that what those who drafted the 14th Amendment intended is to say that what matters is where you're born, not the legal status of your parents. And so I think right now what they're doing is really combating what we heard from the Trump administration for about the first 74 minutes of argument. Again, they're making the argument that look at the text of the 14th Amendment. This was about making sure that the descendants of slaves were full citizens. Look at the cases that interpreted that amendment. They all focused on the idea that if you're born in this country, we don't look at the legal status of your parents, and essentially don't get caught up in the Trump administration's argument about what exactly domicile means in those older cases and if it affects our interpretation now.
There's so much at stake with this case. Jessica Levinson, thank you so much for your insights. We'll see what happens.